Well, hey, friends, and welcome back to the show. Let's get real for a moment. What would you do if you truly, fully, without hesitation, believed in yourself? What decisions would you make? What actions would you take? How different would your life and business look if you stopped second guessing and just went for it? So, I was at a conference years ago and I saw a simple phrase that stopped me in my tracks. And it said, "Belief is my superpower." And it hit me. And when I'm in a place of strong belief, I move differently. I show up differently. And guess what? I get different results. So today we're going to be talking about how belief and confidence are the key ingredients to success and how you can start shifting your mindset today to create the results that you want. So let's dive in, grab your coffee, and let's go. Welcome to the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast, where you will learn simple solutions to win at work without losing at home. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business by elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl, to procrastinating on your goals and living in overwhelm. And it's time to say hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits so that you can achieve work-life harmony. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast. Let's do this. So, one of the speakers at this conference, his name is DeWitt Jones, and I've talked about him on the podcast before, but one of the things that he's a National Geographic photographer, he's retired now, but he talked about with belief, what you can do and how belief is your superpower. And he says, when you believe it, you will see it. So a lot of times we hear when you see it, you'll believe it. But when you believe it, it's actually when you see it. When I believe that I am in demand and that women are waiting to work with me, I see it. When I believe that I can have a successful podcast with 200 episodes. If you were listening to the podcast on Monday, you know we just celebrated 200 episodes. But I believed, even though I didn't know all the details, I believed that I would have a long-standing podcast. And so I saw all the ways to create consistency in this podcast. I saw all the ways to bring on guests to the podcast. I saw all the ways to create content with the podcast. So when you believe it, you will see it. That is the power of belief. Because here's something wild. Your brain is constantly collecting evidence to prove your thoughts right. If you tell yourself, I'm not ready, your brain is going to show you every reason why that's true. But if you shift to, I can figure this out, guess what? Your brain will find evidence for that too. This is why belief is everything. Even when you don't have the evidence of it, when you speak belief over yourself, over your success, whether it be personally, professionally, in your relationships, your brain goes to work to find the evidence for that. So I want you to think about a time when you were fully confident in yourself or in full belief. Maybe it was a moment in your business when things were clicking or a time frame like you just knew that you were meant for more. What happened? You took action, right? You followed through and the results showed up. Now, think about a time when doubt crept in and we listen, I had lots of doubts creep in. So when I'm sharing this with you, I'm sharing it from a place of, I know what it feels like to doubt and to not have belief. And I remember borrowing other people's beliefs in me until I could create my own. But when you're in a place of doubt, what happens? You hesitate, you procrastinate. Maybe you don't even try. And that lack of action created equals zero results. So the belief is the difference. And I can always tell for me personally when I'm in belief. When I'm not in belief, because I'm a huge thinker, and I feel like this has been the biggest piece of awareness for me over the last, I would say 3 to 5 years, is I spend a lot of time in my head. a lot of time thinking, a lot of time processing, a lot of time trying to figure everything out. And that does create procrastination for me. That does create doubts because I'm looking for the right way and not believing that I have everything that I need right now to create that success. And so for me, disbelief or doubts show up with me processing things to death and not taking action. And when I'm in full belief, again, this doesn't mean that I'm feeling it all the time, but when I am stating and I'm choosing thoughts around belief, there is a huge difference. So this also reminds me of a powerful teaching I heard from Andy Stanley years ago. And if you don't know, he was a pastor at a church. I think he's in Atlanta. But he asked us, what would you do if you knew that God was with you and you couldn't fail? I want you to think about that for a minute. What would you do if you knew that God was with you and you couldn't fail? Now, imagine how much different your choices and actions would be if you truly believed that God's hand was guiding you and that failure wasn't even an option. I want you to think about that. What bold moves would you make? What would you do with that level of confidence? So, when he was talking about this, he really was bringing home the story of Joseph in the Bible that highlights this exact kind of belief. So, Joseph had a dream, one where he would, rise to a place of prominence and leadership. And even though his family rejected him, and he was sold into slavery, and he was betrayed by those closest to him, and even thrown into prison. But Joseph didn't give up on his belief that God had a plan for him. And through all the setbacks, Joseph still chose belief. Even in the darkest times, he knew that his story wasn't over and that God was still with him. Joseph's story reminds me that belief doesn't always mean things will be easy or smooth. It means that even in the midst of the most challenging times, you're still being guided towards something greater. So let's go back to the question that Andy asked all of us at this conference. What would you do if you knew that God was with you and you couldn't fail? What would your next move be? What would you try if you knew you could not fail because God's hand was on you? It's a question to ponder and to journal about and to think about and really take it to heart, because it's not, again, that the road's easy. It's not that there's not going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be things that work and things that don't work, but it helps you to buckle into the long game, especially as an entrepreneur. And I'm speaking to many of you who are moms and you're entrepreneurs, or you own your own business, or maybe you're just trying to get this business off the ground. You have to stay committed to the long term. And if you believe that it's possible and you believe that you're going to create these results, then when someone says no, they're not interested in your business opportunity, or someone says no, they're not interested in your product, or the marketing doesn't come across right, or the website launch gets delayed, like, there are bumps in the road. But even when that happens, you're like, it's going to happen. So when I first started this podcast, again, I didn't have all the answers. I had a course and I had, my podcast editor. I had a lot of great things in place. But until you push play and you record and it goes live, I didn't know people are going to listen. Are they going to continue to listen 200 episodes later? But I just fully believed that this is what I was supposed to do. And I believed that I had a voice and I had a message and that women needed to hear it. And so I was willing to show up. I was willing to show up for the one. And now we're 200 episodes later. So I have been in belief of this, even when I think there was like a 6-week period where I didn't, that was the only time I didn't record a podcast because I had COVID. That was when COVID first came out. And then there's been really, really tough seasons, when I retired from 31 and, all of the emotions that are wrapped up around that. And then some personal things that happened over this last year. And so I just still had full belief, even in the midst of those challenging seasons, that this podcast was going to continue. There was never a doubt in my mind. So what would you do if you knew that God was with you and you couldn't fail? So let's get a little bit practical here. Like, how you're like, okay, how do I actually change my beliefs so that they work for me instead of against me? Hey friend, let's talk. It's time to book your clarity call. We are going to spend 1 full hour focused on you. A clarity call isn't about pressure. It's about possibilities. It's about you. You having a space to talk through what's on your heart and mind, you walking away with a clear vision and practical next steps, and you feeling confident in what's next and how to get there. You don't need to have it all figured out. That's my job. All you need to do is show up and we'll figure it out together. This is the best hour you can invest in yourself right now. Not in 6 months from now, not next month, right now. And don't just take my word for it. Here's what one of my coaching clients had to say after working together.
When I started coaching with Martine, I was extremely burned out, overwhelmed, very stressed, and I knew I needed to make some changes. So I reached out, and over the course of time, she helped me realize that I needed to take back control of my schedule, create boundaries. And then along the way, I had a huge transition in my business, and she helped me figure out my next steps and help me structure a new business. And she's been there for me and been able to help guide me with her advice and her knowledge. Without her, I could not be where I am today.
That transformation, it starts with one conversation. It's time to stop spinning your wheels and start making real progress. So head right now to martinewilliams.com or in the show notes and grab your private clarity call spot on my calendar before they're gone. And since I personally monitor my inbox, if you don't see a time slot that fits your calendar, just send me an email at martinewilliams.com with free times that do work, and I will make it work for you. All right, friend, let's get back to the show. And I honestly feel like I could talk about this on every episode because it is such an important part and it's not something that we're taught. But this is where my Triple C Belief Breakthrough Method comes in. And if you're new here, this might be the first time you're hearing this, but the first step of a breakthrough in your thoughts and your beliefs is to catch your thoughts. It's awareness. Notice what thoughts are running through your mind. Are they negative? Are they self-limiting? Are they holding you back from taking action? If so, catch the thoughts before they can take over. So I like to use the Notes app on my phone because this is something that I implement every single day. This is part of self-coaching for myself every day, or at least weekly. So have a little notebook and just become super aware of what you're thinking because your brain is offering up sentences all day long, but you get to decide what you're going to believe or not. So that's the first thing, is to catch your thoughts. The second one is to check your thoughts. That's the second step. Take a moment, examine the thoughts. Are they based on facts or are they assumptions? Ask yourself, is this thought helpful? It might be true, but is it helpful? Is it true? Maybe it's not true, but if it is true, but it's still not productive or helpful, we still want to check that and be honest. Sometimes we can let our thoughts run wild without questioning them. We just let thoughts come across our brain and we're like, oh my gosh, and we believe it to be true. And then the third and final step is once you've caught the thought and you check the thought, now it's time to change it. This doesn't mean ignoring the reality of the situation, but rather shifting your perspective. If your thought is, I am not good enough to do this. How many of you have said that before? I'm not good enough to do this. Change it to, I'm learning and growing every day, and I'm ready to take the next step. That's usually how I shift mine, is I'm learning. That's a really easy shift for me to go out of doubt and problem and into possibility, is I'm learning and I'm growing every day and I'm ready to take the next step. But choose a thought that empowers you and moves you toward action, not one that holds you back. If you're feeling the sense of being stuck or you're holding yourself back or you're feeling limited, it's coming from a thought that you're having. So we have to catch, check, and change. And here's the other thing. Belief doesn't mean you have to feel 100% sure all the time. I don't feel 100% sure all the time. It just means to trust yourself enough to keep moving forward anyway. Even when there's no evidence, even when you don't see the people coming, even when you don't know if people are going to listen, even when maybe someone else has put their limits and belief on you, you keep trusting yourself enough to move forward, trusting that this is what God has said to you, or this is what you feel like He's calling you to. I mean, I remember when I retired from 31, it did not make sense on paper, y'all. And it did not make sense to pretty much every person that I told it to. They could not believe it. And even to myself, I went through a season in that transition where I was like, did I just do that? Is this really what God's asking me to do or calling me to do? But I did believe that it was the right next step for me and where He was calling me to. So I had to trust that. I had to trust that belief and trust what I knew He was telling me to do. So belief doesn't mean you have to feel it. It was still hard. It still was very uncomfortable to make that transition, but I trusted that it was where I was supposed to move, and it helped me to move forward. So, the confidence challenge. Here's my challenge for you this week. I want you to write down one big thing you do differently if you had full belief in yourself. Like, just imagine yourself in full belief. And then the second step is to take one small action. I'm not asking you to jump the Grand Canyon, but what's one small action toward that thing this week? Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's doing some research on it. Maybe it's having a conversation with someone who does the thing that you're wanting to do to find out more about it. What's one small action toward that thing this week? And then check in with yourself. What belief do you need to reinforce to make it happen? Go through the 3 C's, the triple C's, and figure out check in with yourself. What belief do you have right now? And what do you need to change to reinforce a productive thought, a healthy thought to make it happen? And when you're feeling the fear or doubt creeping in, remind yourself of this. This is one of my core beliefs or philosophies. And I talk to my clients about this all the time. I'm either getting the result that I want or the lesson I need. So it's either a win or a learn. This simple mindset shift will free you from the pressure of like needing everything to be perfect and to keep you moving forward. So when I feel myself getting into that perfectionistic loop or in the doubt or the procrastination, this is where I bring my brain back to. I'm either getting the result that I want or the lesson that I need. I'm in a season of learning. And I came across a video the other day, and I don't remember her name, but she's this really famous children's doctor, and she was talking about the space between knowing and I think it was success, basically. But we want, it's like between knowing and not knowing, and we want to know. We want to know. We want to have the knowledge. We want to know the thing, right? But the space between what we don't know and what we do know is where a lot of frustration is created. It's where a lot of the doubts and all of that. But she really helped me like reinforce this, like how to get excited when you're in that space of in between knowing or not knowing and knowing, because it's the learning that's happening there. It's the growth that's happening there. That's where resilience is built, is in the space between what you know and what you don't know. And this is where belief will help you in that space. When you believe that I'm learning, I'm either getting the result that I want or the lesson that I need, then when you're in that spot, you don't get to skip over that. You just don't. You have to go through that space. And I feel like that's where a lot of entrepreneurs jump ship because it can be very uncomfortable. But if you have the long game perspective and you have the long-term belief that this is going to be successful one way or the other, this is where I'm headed. And God is with me and I cannot fail. And you know what I mean? Like big time. There are things that are not going to work. But if God's with me and I cannot fail, then you will be in that place, in that space in between knowing and not knowing. And you will actually, I'm not going to say enjoy it, but you will find gratification there. You will see it for what it is, which is a season of growth and building your resilience. So check in with yourself. What is the belief you need to reinforce? And also realizing that the fears and the doubts are going to creep in. But if you can hold the belief that you're either getting the result that you want or the lesson you need, it will help you in that season. So here's what I want you to take away today. Belief is your superpower. You've heard me talk about superpowers with regards to your personality and how like mine is my people trait. That is my superpower. It's how I've built all of my businesses, is based on my ability to connect and build relationships with people. There are other clients that I work with. Their superpower is their systems and structure trait. They're very systematic. They're very structured. They're very routine. And so that is how they've built their businesses. That's how they've been successful at home and at work. But overall, no matter where your personality type or your personality comes into play, belief and managing your beliefs is your superpower. But you have to activate it. The more you practice believing in yourself, the more momentum you build and the faster you see results. So believing it before you see it. Because when you believe it, you actually will see it. You'll see ways to make it work. You'll see ways to find that success. You'll see all the open doors. So remember, when you're making progress, it's a both. You're getting a result and you're also getting a lesson. Both are considered progress. So if you're getting the result, great, there's progress there. If you're getting a lesson, great, you're making progress too. And if this episode hit home for you, or you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with a fellow mompreneur who needs this reminder. And if you're ready to really step into confidence and take that next step in your business, let's connect. I would love to help you make that happen. I offer free clarity calls. It's 1 hour. It's you and I together. We're going to talk through what your biggest challenges are. We're going to talk through like where you want to go. What are your goals? And we're going to uncover some limiting beliefs that you probably have. And then what's a step-by-step plan and process to help you to get from where you are to where you want to go with more clarity, confidence, and courage. It's 1 hour. It's completely free. You can go to the show notes or you can go to martinewilliams.com and sign up for that. So I want you to go out there and I want you to believe it. Believe it first, because confidence starts with you. And you know that I am believing in you always. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.